Hello, welcome. I'm Michael Müller. I'm a BI and data modeling expert. I'm currently self-employed and I do this for now 20 years. And I truly like to automate a data warehouse. I love the topic of data warehouse automation. And this is why I came onto this topic, because, basically, Data Vault puts us into a Zen question, which is, excuse me, load all of the data all of the time, always be able to restore the original data, which means no changes in the data, but store the data according to business, not in the source structure. So we need to store the data in a business way without changing it. That is somewhat strange. That's basically the question. And how do we do it? Basically, you have a kind of business object model that tells you how the business sees the data. And this data gives the structure to our core warehouse. And the content, the data, comes from the other side. And by mixing this, we can achieve the result to our, or a possible, most possible good outcome to our Zen question. And what we need to do is to map the source tables to core business concepts. And yeah, this will lead to immediately to some core business concepts, some of the business objects above that cannot be mapped to a system table, to a source table. And that's unfortunate. What's fortunate is there is quite a good book on how to do this. And it's from Giles, and he's in the audience, so I feel a bit flattered. And with this, this will give you further readings onto what I tell today, and maybe, if you know it already, some more insights. Before I go into all of the structural stuff, into the data vault stuff, I want to say some words to the business object model on top. I'm working with business for 20 years now, and I do data models with them. And often I hear, you cannot model with business. They don't know what to do. They don't know what to say. That's not my experience. Usually they are very well versed, but they're often a bit short-tempered when it comes to data modeling because they had some bad experience in the past. And I think there are some things that can change the way one can do data modeling with the business. And that is because data modeling has somehow something to do with the overall topic of human understanding and how humans interact. I put these big three philosophers down. And the first one, Aristoteles, he was basically the inventor of ontologies. And that was the definition of human understanding, because with the ontologies, people were able to actually compare things by talking about the same thing. So it was quite clear what the topic of our conversation is. And that's an interesting thing, and that led to the universe of discourse, which is the basis of data modeling. Somehow some of these discussions had a bit tender come out, because there are jokes like, what is the difference between a data modeler and a terrorist? You can negotiate with a terrorist. And that's kind of tough, because, not because I think so, but Plato, he said some interesting things. If you sit in a cave and you have people around the campfire, you see people and you see their shadows on the wall behind them. How can you know that what you see is exactly what is there and not just the silhouette on the wall? So he basically asks what we see and what we get, what we see, what we experience, is it really the reality? Can we express this? And if I take this one seriously, I should look at the differences as well as the commonalities. Then I get a more complete picture. In order to be able to do that, I need to find consent in a way of I can live with it. Because honestly, if somebody else needs data other than I myself, well, as long as it doesn't disturb my way of working or my goals, he can have it. And this is a different way of looking at data models than a more traditional way, because there is more leeway, there's more room for people to maneuver. And the third one is Heraclite. He said everything flows, and that means everything is changing. And honestly, after 20 years, some things are surprisingly constant, but change is the most constant thing of all. So we need to accept change and embed it into the architecture. And with these things, a business object model with business can be achieved quite fast, because I don't have to focus on getting everything right in the first place. It will change anyway. And I don't have to nail it down 100% perfectly. No, I can look at the differences. And I do this with business people in meetings. And it's surprising what happens if you not try to push the commonalities, but if you say, okay, you see it like this, you see it like this, how do we do it with that? And all of a sudden, solutions come their way, and it really speed up the discussion. So going back, just because there was some discussions on how to get these models, and should we use an industry model or should we do the source? I think an industry model is a lovely thing to get more perspective, but honestly, you want to capture what's important to your business people. And then we map the source, and for everything that is lacking here, we will later on in the business world add these structures. And the business world is not, he still is hub and spoke, because nothing moves back to the stage and the result will be moved forward to the data mart. But in the business world itself, there are several steps that can take place upon each other that can get you through several results. It becomes complex, and even a small data warehouse, if the business rules are complex, can get 7 or 8 steps in the creation of the business world. So it is very, very important to have this good documented. Furthermore, that the business world is the one place where all of these structure is not model driven, because everything else is based on the source structure, on some metadata, and it can be easily computed. But for the business rules, I have to look into the data, I have to work with it, knead it, and I will get some new insights that will lead to different structure than originally planned. So this part can become complex very fast. And if you don't document and if you don't care about the lineage in your business mode from the beginning, like with DBT does, it can become ugly very fast. And I even had to redocument a whole business world just 9 months after implementing it. And that's so, yeah, this is a complex thing. And this leads to our topic today. The business world gets complex very fast. Can we move some of the changes to the top, to the stage? And the only reason we can do it is if we don't change the data, and if it is indeed something that comes from the structure itself, that has more to do with technical stuff instead of business rules, because we don't want any business rules or in the front. We only want to have processes that can be automated, that we can trigger via metadata, where the processing is very precise, systematic, repeatable. So that is the question of today. And the easiest part is I have one table to one business concept. The first thing, the business key has to be unique. We need to check that. The business keys goes to the hub. The attributes go to satellites. Might be one, might be many, but it stays on this grain of the business, of this business concept. And the foreign keys, they become links, and they need to be filled with and they need to fill the parent hub. So this one is the easiest one. That's the sweet spot. All agree on the same business concept. Unless the trouble can come very fast, because the link and the parent hub are a business concept. That means this is an example from SAP. And usually when I work with that SAP data, when I work with production data, I always have the plant where it is produced. Also, it's just a SAP text table, but business always wants to see the plant. And it is a business concept for them, regardless whether SAP makes it into a text table or not. And we have the material. And then I have some table, and there are quite a lot of it, and they have both of the keys in there. The fun part is there is something, the Marcy, which is plant material, and they have these two keys. And in a very traditional way, on Data Vault, this reeks like a link, but there will be many business concepts linking to it. So we need to decide on which of these three business objects the keys of my link go to. And especially something like the plant material is something that the business will never consider, because they are aware that there are specific parameters and they use it, but it's not a business concept in their mind. But on the database, this is a business concept, because we need to store data explicitly at this level in order to store it correctly. Otherwise, we have the wrong granularity. So these are some kind of like implicit business concepts. And I usually go back to the business at this point and talk to them about this, so that I can put it right. And that's one of the things, if we look at mapping this stuff, the source brings some truth to the table, and we need to honor it, because data is always stored at a certain level of granularity. And if we break up this granularity, we can't store it. So we need to handle this. And it's okay to not have these implicit business concepts in the model of the business, in the conceptual model, in the input. I would advise to put it there to gain awareness, but sometimes it's not worth the discussion. Another interesting part while mapping, and again, it lies with the links. We have tables without a primary key. On the source table, there are only one-to-many relationships. All of the relationships in the database are somehow one-to-many, because if you want to store it relational, you have to create a table that combines these two one-to-many relationships. Hence, the object order item in this short business concept overview. The two foreign keys, order and product, are perfectly fine to describe the granularity of this level. And if it is okay to have a product only once per order, that's a perfect fine design. Usually we might have a primary key here, but that's not the point. The interesting part is, what do we do here? Because this might also be another case of an implicit business concept. But here, our actions are limited, because you always have a delivery, an invoice, and payment onto the order or onto the order item. Sometimes there's even payment just on the order items. So other transactions to the item, and if we want to avoid link on link, we need to create a kind of hub here. And this has to be done. Again, the question to the business, is this an implicit business concept? Do you know of this? Is this helpful for you? What do you do with the follow-up processes? Do they link to it? And And on the result of these questions, we will move this one into the conceptual model. But still, I would highly recommend in these cases to create a hub out of it. But the most valuable advice is clear all discrepancies with the business. Everything that doesn't add up has a problem to it, has some issue to it. And the sooner you talk to business about it, the quicker it will be solved. But this is just common knowledge. So, and always a good advice. Yeah. There is a modeling method that explicitly goes into business and cares about this. Elm, I don't know if you heard it, but they explicitly look for follow-up transactions that link onto these M2M keys. And that's a good thing to do, and that's a good thing to clear up with business. And yeah, why it's always a bit strange. People are always seem to have different understanding of the data, and I've just seen that I accidentally left some German in my slides. I'm deeply ashamed. This means technical differences on the viewpoint of data. And there are some things that are usually, if I have somebody from business doing requirements for an operational system, he does data as process states. He's interested in noting down the states of the processes, where on the dispositive side, he's more interested in analytics, in reporting key figures, dimensions, and already this goal sets a certain mind on how somebody looks at it. I usually ask them, yes, it's okay, we do key figures, dimensions, no worries, but if we look at the underlying data, how does it work together so that you don't miss something on key figures and dimensions? The same of the other side. Operational performance viewpoints are valued way higher than on the dispositive side. At least everybody likes performance, but I've never seen really structural. There's a certain point someone in BI won't go beyond in order to achieve performance. But on operational, I've seen strange and really bad things, because it is sufficient enough for the kind of work you want to do with the data. It's just one way to process the data. Whereas in BI, we look at a bigger picture and we use the data from different angles, so we cannot do as much strange things on performance as for performance reasons as operative. The viewpoint is data integration and data quality, as well as experience, bias, and level of concentration. So the point, what I'm trying to say here is talk about the data and talk about the understanding. And whenever something doesn't add up, find out the reason behind it, but be kind, because honestly, this is just human. And but moving on with the main topic, one table, we're mapping our system tables to business concepts. And when we have one table to several business concepts, there are 4 possible types that are the reason to it. Supertypes that didn't add up the business concepts in the way business views it currently. Encapsulated, it's in there, is another object. Header and line item in one file, in one table. A one-to-end denormalization. And within a table, an object that is many to one. Let's go to the examples here. This is again from SAP. It's a sales document, header and item, and in there is a table partner, and this table has the keys of header, of item, which is VBN and POS-NR, and a par VW that is the contact person or the contact type for this person. And there are in there 30 or 35 different contact persons. It's very thorough and very complete. Client, goods recipient, invoice recipient, payments, receiver, everything. Everything you can ever imagine is here listed as possible contact type. And you can have a link to a customer or a foreign key to a customer, to a supplier, and even to employees. So this table contains everything. And nobody wants to work on this like this. So depending on the business object model you got with your business partners, you either split this one into header and item, and you can do it because whenever the POS-NR is 0, the partner is something for the whole header and for the whole sales document. Only if it has a valid POS number, it's a partner just for this position. And this is something that is very wise to split up, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense in your data vault model, and you need to understand your data vault model. Whereas if you split it up, you can actually get it right on the first place. Okay, I've got a contact person on the header and I've got a contact person on the item. Okay, this is the general one, that's the special one. Easy to see. If you put it here together, it's tougher to see. A split according to the contact role, only if business asks for it. But if you want to do it, it's something you can do very easily in the stage, because you just split the file in half. And the same thing with partner types. Leave the suppliers, leave the customers out. That is, again, highly dependent on your business wanting to have a partner model or wanted to have it separate in customer and supplier. And yeah, they decide whatever suits them best. And that's it. The final decision is made by business, but these are viable options where you can change your data without changing the content, because it just split tables. Or even the schema relates the same. Another thing, an encapsulated object, something from experience. There was a company, they make custom-made trucks, and they put enhancement on top of the delivery trucks. And when the order is made, there is no vehicle there. But at some point, they buy the vehicle, and then start producing it. So this structure in here that describe which vehicle was bought with the VIN number and what kind of structure and add-on type they want, so the basic of their own product structure is in there. And that's just an encapsulated object. And it is, again, very easy to split it out, leave the VIN number in the order as a foreign key, and create a vehicle hub and a link and a satellite. The only thing you need to be careful is this is an optional part. It might be that a VIN appears and then disappears. And you need to handle that properly because, again, we want always to be able to create the source structure. Another example, one-to-many dependency. That is quite easy. Order and line in one file, especially if somebody has a kind of export structure in place. You split it right on line, create hub, link, and satellite for both. But now you have to handle the duplicates in the general part. And it's okay to just drop the duplicates, but be sure solving the underlying problem. And that might be a bit strange to ask because it should be natural. But I was in a POC with a data warehouse automation tool, and they just dropped the duplicates. 3 records gone without any notification. And that's not 100% of the data 100% of the time. So please handle these duplicates and make sure that it is at least the error corrected during the export, which was the case here. Another one is I have a normalization from many to one. And that's something that is often found in JSON files. In this JSON file, this is from BikeShare. There is a several BikeShare systems described, and in here they have they have the rental app, the one for Android and the one for iOS. And this is something that can be shared across several systems. So this is in reality its own table. But if you split it up, you lose your granularity because somebody who will deliver it to you here might deliver for any system for something that has the same name here, something different here. So, oh, sorry, my mouse is not visible on your side. I was on the wrong page. So it might have something that describes the same rental app, but has different entries every time in every entry in this JSON file. So this will lead, these are more than just duplicates. This is a massive loss of information. So you cannot clear this one out in the stage because you need a business rule for that. So you need to move this data to a satellite and store it on system level in this case, because the JSON file is system. That means here I'm totally lost. I cannot do anything with early integration without moving into business rules. You might consider using a tool for normalizing JSON, just because But still, if you do that, you have a clearing in front of the warehouse, additional to the warehouse, that has some other obstacles, but that's an architecture and system decision that needs to be taken on the case. Moving on, we have several table to one business concept, and there I would say all for one and one for all, because if it is the same business concept, it should be in the same hub. Sometimes this will lead to strange consequences, but is always the best way to do it. I might end up with a hub that has several different business keys in the same hub, and I will get a lot of logic in the same S-links, especially as we move further down and A becomes B and B becomes C, so A has to become C as well, this kind of stuff. But the upside of it is you can immediately report on all of the data in the hub, and therefore make the problem of master data management visible. Sometimes in BI, we try to solve the problems of the world instead of making them visible. And I think the later way is a more sane way, because I've done it the other way around and tried to solve the problem myself, although I was not in the position to. And you cannot do master data management on the data warehouse. You have to do it on the operational systems. And then you will end up giving a bad solution and everybody will come at you. So these were the examples of how can we put something, if there is one table, one business concept, one table, many business concepts, many tables to one business concept. And now for a strange example, because what shall I say? That is something that really has been done. If you try to get the stock of an SAP system, you can either go to a table where you just get the differences and you need to add it up all the time, or so you don't get a baseline, you only get adding figures, or you can go to 4 to 6 attributes in 5 different tables, and then you will get a complete stock as well. But then you have your stock dependent on plant materials, stock, storage location, stock type, and sales order, and supplier and customer. So you could gather them in stage. There is no data transformation. The stock type comes directly from the table. And let me show you how this will end up in a finer picture. So these are the tables, and you see this one has the stock, that one has just stock waiting for transfer, that is stock held back due to quality reasons, this is stock that is otherwise reserved, and this one is blocked for whatever reasons, and this one just returned and isn't planned to go anywhere else. So you can make one stock out of this with a stock type without changing the data. There is no business logic in here, you just gather it. And move the semantics from the attribute into an additional new attribute. Good idea, bad idea. I'm still undecided because this was implemented as something that has a link satellite on all of these 6 hubs. And that's a bad thing to do, because immediately after there was some stock evaluation, and the attribute of this stock evaluation needed a hub where it could go, because it was not, you couldn't do it on the link satellite for some reasons. And if I would have known that this is the next step, it would have been wiser to just load them separately and put them together. But if you revisit it and you give this one a hub and you store it to a hub and then add just additional information and then you can link other stuff to it, yeah, then it might make a difference. But still, this can get tough, because my experience is if you push things right to the very edge, somebody else half a year later, a year later, comes in and goes one step further, and all of a sudden you have business rules in here. This is so on the brink of what you can do that the possibility that somebody will afterwards create a business rule into it is quite probable.
There's a remark from the chat from Gabriel where he says these don't seem to be exactly like the instance of the one and the same business concept unless we consider stock as a technical supertype of all those different kinds of stock.
It is. It is, because you can actually calculate the stock out of it. You just, yeah. So the stock is really what a material at a certain location of this type is in there. Oh, let me. Oh, yeah, it's not a stock quantity snapshot. Yeah, but it's still. No, you're totally right. I'm reading the chat in parallel. It's not stock of material in plant. It's stock of this material at that storage location, held for either a customer or is in there as a or is still in the possession of a supplier, or is already allocated to sales order. This is really how a certain, not only a certain material type, but really a material, and that was paint. So there is, it's just a container of it, and you will fill 20 liters of it out. And yeah, that was the reason behind it. So it's really the stock of actual paint. If you don't have a table for business concept, search for it, ask the business, get the business rules. If you still don't have it, well, it didn't happen to me before, but I would ask myself, I would ask the business why it's not there. again. And it might be that you have a table but no business concept. And I don't know if you need it or not, but this is basically another version of the implicit business concept discussion. Good. One other thing you can do up front is replacing the technical foreign key with a business key. I would really recommend to leave it at that. Just you get a parent table with a technical key as a primary key and a business key as an alternate key in there. And the technical key is used as a foreign key in other tables. And in these tables, you can replace the technical foreign key with business key. Well, not replace, please add them. But yeah, and that will lead to another table in the stage where you have technical key, business key, and some kind of valid from too. Either with an start and an end date, load date and load end date, or if you do insert only with a load date and a status. Again, this might mess up your deletes from the parent table because you don't change the parent table, but you change the focus. And if the business key is used by two technical keys, because one got deleted and the other one just got added, and it might be an environment where sometimes one record overtakes the other, then you will need to take a bit care for the proper deletes. Yeah. And these are basically the things I've seen and tried and done for an early integration. And I think this is a trickery road. You have to walk the line. Don't ever change the content. Be aware business logic trickles in. I've seen so many examples where there was a strict architecture and then somebody repurposed the layer of the architecture by doing something that should be done somewhere else. And the reason is always the same. If I do it here, it can be done faster. Yeah, for this one case. But in general, it's better off at its usual place. So this is a trade-off. And in case of data vault and early and late integration, there is no question. Business logic has no reason to be in the early stages. That will mess up everything. So this is a bit playing with fire, but it's easy to play with fire and it is fun and it has its merits, but stay in lane of the architecture. And I truly mean lane because to me in an architecture, every layer has its own actions that can be done there and only done there. And yeah. My last one, the patterns we found. Hubs have to follow the business concepts. All for one, one for all. Satellites stay on the grain of the source. And links are some way both. Especially if you have n-array links, these should always be defined on the business. This is. And by mapping the source system tables to business objects, some changes are okay for mismatched supertypes, for encapsulated objects, for one-to-many denormalization, technical key to business key. And the next one is, I'm still not sure if this one should belong in here, but if you can carefully rearrange your attributes and you can ensure that everybody stays in line with the architecture, you can rearrange your attributes. But always change the structure, never the content.